right, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, or what have you. This is Ryan, and you are watching another episode of Live Coding. So, what we're going to do today is something a little bit different from usual. So, whereas in previous days we were working on Catalyst, which is an open source workout logging application, which I'm rebuilding. In order to build that properly, I needed to figure out in kind of an isolated, smaller application how I wanted to do a number of different things. And so one of the main things that I've been dealing with in my own learning is basically redoing my front-end architecture for Android. Now, the reason why I wanted to redo it is, well, there's several reasons. So number one, there's just new technologies which have come out since the last time I've spent significant time building Android user interfaces. But also, I've been trying to basically convert my architectures from RxJava based to Coroutine based, and a number of things like that. So basically, the plan for today is to talk about some of the different changes which I made, and some of the different approaches I'm working on, and so it's going to be interesting, definitely still a little bit experimental, and I won't be sharing the code just yet until the application is actually building, but I do want to, just for the start of the episode, take you guys and girls through just like an overview of what I've got so far, the challenges I'm currently dealing with, and then we'll get to some coding action. So I'm going to try to have the chat open on the side while I do this for a change. And so already I see Taha has joined us. And what's up, buddy? Good to see you. So, yeah, let's, before we get started, we'll do the intro as usual. So if you enjoy what I do and would like to see me do it better, then please do consider supporting WiseAss on Google Plus while it still exists, Facebook, Twitter, and consider joining our Slack channel if you would like specialized help from lots of experienced developers. Of course, you're probably watching this on YouTube, so please do consider subscribing if you haven't already, and consider hitting the like button down below as well if you learned something today. And this channel is partly brought to you by supporters from Patreon and PayPal. So for today, I would just like to give a shout out to, let me make sure I got this here. Yep, my friends A, Cameron, Graham, Hank, Pjack, Shoku, Sushil, and Trevor. And many of those people are very long-time supporters of the channel, so I very much appreciate what all of you do. So thank you so much. And looks like we got a couple more people. Andev and Wolf Hesse. That is a German name if I've ever heard one. Anyways, so I'm not going to be doing too many accents today. Don't worry about that. If you're watching the previous Q&A, then you got to suffer through all kinds of my different accents. Yesterday's Q&A video was just kind of like a fun experience, hopefully. I was Austrian. Sehr gut, ja. Anyways, so let's get started here. So there's a couple things I wanted to talk about just right off the bat. So one of the things is, apparently my German accent was pretty good. I'm actually pretty good at doing the German accent. I've listened to Rammstein for quite a lot of years. Wenn ich war 11 Jahre alt. Anyways, I'll shut up and talk code as much as I would love to ramble at you. But that's a good idea. Thanks for the tip, Andev. Okay, so what I wanted to do, so I'm going kind of crazy with, okay, actually let me approach this way. So for my friends who are not too familiar with Kotlin, so if you're looking to expand the functionality of some object without actually bloating that object itself, increasing the source code within that object, Kotlin provides two different ways to do that. So the first way is just classic object-oriented inheritance and polymorphism. So that takes the shape of the fact that I have this class called base logic. I want you to consider this as a presenter. I'm not going to use the presenter or controller word too much from here on because I'm just tired of getting into arguments with people about whether my architecture is model view controller or model view presenter. And at this point, I'm basically saying to everyone, screw you guys, I'm just going to give it my own name. And the thing is, whether you call it a presenter or a controller, it's basically a class which is full of logic. Therefore, I call it logic now. So that's probably going to annoy a few people, but I don't really care too much at this point because the words are a little silly. So anyways, as I was saying, one of the ways to increase the functionality of a class without modifying the class itself, so we have like a note detail logic or note detail presenter if you're familiar with that, is to have it inherit from other classes. But the other thing we can do in Kotlin is we can use extension functions. So if you've been wondering what extension functions are for in Kotlin, let me tell you, they are one of the coolest features of Kotlin because you can actually extend the functionality of objects without any inheritance. Now, what I've been finding is that there's different situations where it's more useful to use inheritance, and then sometimes it's more useful to use extension functions. So it's two different tools to solve the same problem. But yeah, let me just talk about some things I've been working on. So most importantly, for my front-end architectures, for each feature of the application, I have like a contract class. So some people kind of complain about front-end interfaces, and they say you don't have to have the view and the presenter as interfaces and stuff like that. Whatever the reasons are to and against doing that, I actually really like kind of doing this contract class, and one of the things which I'm going to be testing out is, notice how down here in this contract class I've also added a sealed class called note detail event. And the whole purpose of this little sealed class is to represent all potential events which may propagate from the view. Oops, I love it when it thinks I'm clicking and dragging and I'm just selecting. That's so annoying. And I need to get a new mouse, it's broken. Anyways, so yeah. So why would I bother doing this? Well, I don't want the view to have like an enormous number of methods which it calls back to the presenter or logic class. You know what, from here on I'm just going to call it logic class, and whenever you hear logic class, just insert into your brain presenter. So yeah, instead of having the view call basically a function here, instead of having like a function for every event on done click, on delete click, on back click, I have one function which the view is allowed to call back to the logic class, and this one function returns a note detail event, which is of course our sealed class down here. And then when I actually want to determine what to do with that particular event, then I just use a when matcher here, when clause, whatever it's called. So what that looks like on the views end, we have a view which is a fragment, and I'm using Kotlin synthetic methods, or synthetic properties rather. And so what that allows me to do is each time some button fires a click event, there's got to be one here somewhere. Maybe I haven't implemented it yet. I might not have actually set up click events in this class just yet. Okay, so what it would look like, yeah, I haven't actually added the buttons, but just to show you really quickly, we'll probably do that later. What it would look like is this thing talks to the logic class, and it would, for every click event, it would say logic dot, do I have that as the correct? So that's registered as base logic, and that should actually be I note detail contract dot logic. Oh, I see what's going on. Okay, so publish event. So this is one of the things already that I'm running into, is sometimes I'm trying to use abstract classes, and sometimes I'm trying to use interfaces, and other times I'm trying to use extension functions. So this is the thing I've been fiddling around with a whole bunch. Andev asks, is this code available on GitHub? It will be soon, not yet. I'm not going to share it until it's working properly, because I don't want people copying code that doesn't work. So it will be shortly, though, as soon as it's building. Yeah. Anyways, so I'll have to fiddle around with this later, but just to show you, eventually once it's configured properly, this thing would actually be note detail logic. I need to fix that. And what we would do is we would say logic dot note detail event, and then I would pass it an event based on whatever button was clicked. So the whole purpose of doing that is to basically take away as much logic as possible out of the view and to keep it into the presenter. So yeah, the only logic you'll kind of see in the fragment is just the method which fires the method, or the function rather, which associates on click of some widget and then the associated event being passed to the logic class. So that's the basic idea there. So I might fiddle around with the view later, but that's not the main thing that I was going to work on today. So let me just fix this really quickly. Oops, that's totally not what I wanted. Base logic, okay. So that's what's going on there. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is, so if you're familiar with how I normally do, or if you're familiar with what I've been rambling about lately, I was talking about making, so when it comes to interactors or use cases, which is kind of like a middleware class if you're not certain, basically what I was trying to do before, and I was all excited about teaching everyone how to do this, is instead of having like a class which represents each use case, so to speak, I just had an extension function on coroutine scope, and then I would just call them like that, coroutine scope.get notes. So I really liked that, but it ended up being a problematic approach. And the reason why it was problematic, there's actually one specific reason, is that I could not figure out how to actually mock coroutine-based extension functions. Now, I even went so far as really spending a couple hours trying to configure this particular tool that I'm using called Mockk, which is, I've recently changed to Mockk when I was using Mockito before. And I'm also using JUnit 5 as well. But basically, the problem I was dealing with is that if I wanted to actually test my logic class, naturally the logic class is going to be calling these extension functions. The library I was using is supposed to be able to mock extension functions. I couldn't get it to do it after spending like 2 hours fiddling around with it. So then I kind of said to myself, okay, well, I really can't have it that in order to just test my logic class, I need to also verify the implementation of the interactors, the extension function. It can't be that I need to test those both at once, because if that's the case, then my tests are basically, let's put it this way, I'm not really testing single units at that point. I'm testing way more than I want to be testing. So that's just not acceptable in my approach to testing. Tests have to be easy to write and concise, and I was finding like already, you know, because I have the logic class doing so much, I'm having to mock a lot of interactions, and it was just getting to the point where I then had to mock the interactions in the what was supposed to be the mock extension function here. It turns out no matter what I did, it always called the actual implementation of this function, which requires everything to be working properly. It doesn't work properly with mocks, again, as I say, unless I decide to mock all interactions contained in here. So with that in mind, I am actually I've just 20 minutes ago decided, okay, let's just go back to making this just a class which contains suspending functions. I'm not going to have the interactor hold the repositories as properties. I'm going to still pass them in, and that's the whole goal of making these things into extension functions. Is I'm trying to make my architecture more functionally based. So anyways, just reading the comments here. Tom mentions I think you can make I-base logic and make the base logic implement that, and the I-note detail extend the I-base logic. That I was thinking about the same thing. The thing that I'm just fiddling around on is so the reason why I have the base logic class is just because every logic class is going to I'm going to want to have this bind and clear and job tracker object, and they're also all going to need a dispatcher and a service locator object. So I think what I could do, let's go back to that contract. I might even be able to say that this extends base logic. Or is it not gonna, can't inherit from a class even though it's an abstract class. So that's okay. In any case, I'm not going to worry about that just at the moment. But yeah. Anyways, so let's get back to what we were doing here. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to try and just get a couple of these unit tests running and working. And so the class I'll be testing is no, it's just called note detail logic. And so I just want to test all of the event handling functions that this particular thing has. So all of these things are, of course, going to be coroutine based, so we'll have to bear that in mind. And I've already got one of the tests passing, so I'm just going to run this one again, and we'll see what the output is. So, amusingly enough, this test is passing. It's still throwing an error, so it's telling me no answer found for view.startList feature. So I'm pretty sure view.startList feature doesn't return anything. So it's throwing an error, but that's kind of, I don't think it's a real error. Like, it'll be returning unit possibly, but that's not a big deal. The important thing I wanted to know is just all this stuff that's going on here. So I just want to make sure that when the user clicks the done button on done click, that was a good voice crack. I want to make sure that I get the current, so the view model is a front end data store, a front end, it holds the data necessary to render the view is essentially what it is. And to me, that is exactly what a view model should do based on its name. And so what I do is when the user hits the done button, the first thing I do is, in order to get the display state, because it is a live data object, it pops out a nullable. Let me just open that really quickly so you can see what I'm talking about. So in order to get display state out of live data, mutable live data object, it must return a nullable value. So that's why I have to have this little null check in here. If that value is null, then we're seriously incapable of proceeding with the regular application flow. So I actually just restart the feature in that particular case, because what it's returning is the note object which was sent or retrieved for this particular feature. If the note is missing, if the note in view model is null, then we have no idea what where to write the updated data. So that's what's going on there. Now, I don't think that'll actually ever occur, or at least it'll probably be like we're talking 99.9% not going to happen edge case. So I'm not very concerned about that. What I am concerned about is this part here. So what I do is first I get whatever is in the view model, and then what I do is I create a copy of that. So I believe note is all value, right? Did I do that? Yeah, so as you can see, note exclusively uses val properties, so read-only properties. So when you're dealing with immutable data, generally speaking, instead of basically grabbing this current note and then setting its value, it's the content of the note to whatever is in the user interface. Instead of doing that, we create a copy using the handy data class copy method, and then we just overwrite that copy with the only thing, we create a new copy with the change that we want, which is, I just had my IDE throw an error here. And that's basically how you work with immutable data when you need to change it. Once we create that value, then I pass that value to the interactor, note source.update note, and then we just check the result of that. So this is basically working as far as the unit tests are concerned. So what I'll do next is I'm going to finish off on back click and on delete click, and we'll go from there. Hey, what's up? Robert from Europe. All right, so let's go back into note detail test. So just really quickly, most of you are used to me using Mockk. I recently switched to Mockk here. It's spelled Mockk. And the reason why I switched to that is I watched a talk from Kotlin Conference 2018 by Philip Hauer, very German guy from Leipzig. And so I would highly suggest people check that out. So the talk was something, it was Kotlin unit testing, Philip Hauer. And I don't know, that's not the exact title, but go ahead and look at that and you'll find the talk. And he advocated, I learned a whole bunch of stuff from his talk when it came to unit testing, including using JUnit 5 instead of JUnit 4, which I'm not sure why I wasn't doing that earlier. And then also switch to Mockk instead of Mockk. It's not that I hate Mockk, it's just when I looked at Mockk, it's just a much more idiomatic API. So this is the same as the mockk.when. So every time view.getNoteBody is called, return this value. Also, when we want to create the mocks, we don't actually have to fiddle around with annotations. We just say equals Mockk, and that creates our mocks. And there's also like a handy little tool to reuse mocks instead of having to create them each time, which is much more efficient. So, anyways, let's go down to, so that's basically working. Let's look at on delete accept. So one of the things, this is actually the process I follow when I need to write tests for complicated cases. So I've written out here just a simple verbal explanation of what the user wants to do. This is almost like a user story. And then I write out the actual steps required to achieve that goal. And then I go from these written steps to building the actual test case. Now I would like to try and configure it so that I don't have to build this logic class every time, but I need to just figure, I tried just having it in here and I don't think that works, which is what I thought before each is supposed to do. Let me just try and run this test again. I think it's going to break. I think it's going to tell me that logic hasn't been initialized when I do that. Yeah, it says late init property hasn't been initialized. So whatever is occurring in, let's try before. Let's try that, and I don't know if clear mocks is supposed to sit in there is the problem. So let's just try that really quickly. Okay, that does appear to work. So maybe I will leave that. This little method down here, clear mocks, it's supposed to like clear before each test is executed. It kind of resets these things, which is so you can either reset them or you can rebuild them, and resetting them is just a lot more efficient for memory. So that appears to be working. So I'm confident I can go on to onDelete method down here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy and paste this stuff. And another thing I want to figure out is, can I just like generalize these responses? I think there is a way to do that in Mockk, so I'm not just copy and pasting all of this crap. But actually, I wonder if I could even just like throw them in a method or a function. I don't know. For now, I'm not going to worry about optimization. I'm just going to worry about getting things working. So, and then we'll need this Coroutines. So another thing that's kind of handy with Mockk is that every time you need to mock a coroutine or a suspending function, you just use this co prefix, and that'll help you. That'll allow you to mock suspending functions. As you can see right here, we have a suspending function. So we're not going to say update note. We're going to say delete note. Is that not implemented? Nope, source. No, I have not implemented delete note, so I'm going to have to do that. Delete note. Will be given a note and a service locator. And because I'm mocking this thing again, I don't actually care about finishing off this implementation. But it's important to have the method, the function signature in the test. Okay, cool. That should be fine. And I just want to know if it's successful, so returning a Boolean is fine in that particular case. All right. So what we'll do is then, so these are the interactions which I need to mock. There's quite a few, but that is the side effect of the way I build architectures, is that most of the logic is in the logic class, or what you would think of as the presenter. So that does result in pretty large logic classes, but I'm not sure if I actually mind that, because I'd rather that as opposed to having to test the view or the adapter or the view model. So we'll see how that works out in the end for me. So next thing we're going to do is we call the actual method on the logic class, function. I don't know why I keep saying method lately. It's like I've been brainwashed by my old Java habits. So we're going to say logic.onDeleteClick. So that's what we want to test. And then what do I want to verify? So I need to make sure that, okay, so when we press delete, they want to get rid of their note, so they will be returned to a list view of all notes. So we're going to ask the user for confirmation via snack bar, so I'll have to configure that. So we're not going to need view.getNoteBody. Let's say view. I'll have to add that in. So we're going to say show confirm delete snack bar. I'm not sure if that needs parameters. I don't think it actually returns. I don't think it'll need to return anything. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to need to add that method to the contract, show confirm delete snack bar, and then I'm going to need to add a new event in the view. So that's going to be, yeah, let's create that. It's not going to return anything. It's not going to be abstract. Show confirm delete snack bar. Now, in order to call back when the user accepts that, I'm going to need to add another event here. So this will be on delete confirmed. Okay, cool. So that'll allow our view to call back to the presenter once the user accepts, if the user does. Now, so I want to make sure that is called, but that might actually be the only thing I want to do in this particular case. So this should just be on delete click, and we'll worry about the confirmation in a different unit, because all I want to know is, all that's happening here is we're just asking the user, hey, do you actually want to delete this note? So I don't need to worry about all the other crap. I think that's true. Yeah, the problem here is that I've grouped together several operations. So yeah, let's, instead of doing that, I'll create another one here. On delete decline. Actually, I only need on delete confirmation, I think. So for this one, we're just going to say ask user for confirmation via snack bar. For this one, oops, that's totally not what I wanted to do. All right. Yeah, let's just clean this up a little bit. When user presses delete, they want to get rid of their note. So let's rephrase that a little. When user presses delete, they may wish to delete a note, or it might be accidental. Show confirmation. So this is actually like a really simple test here, so I just want to make sure that that's called. So we don't need to call view model anything, I don't think. I don't need to call the coroutine yet. And is that actually what I'm testing? I feel like I'm actually testing on, I feel like I'm testing an event here. How did I write that? Yeah, no detail event. No detail event dot on delete click. Okay. Actually, like, I don't think this actually like needs to return. Let's just go with that, and then we'll say, what is it? Verify? Yeah, verify that view dot show confirm delete snack bar was called. So I believe that's correct. I think that's all I want to do here. By the way, how's everyone doing today? So I'm just going to, before I run this test, just run a quick commercial break. If you have any questions about what I'm doing, then please feel free to ask right now, and I'll try and answer. And other than that, we'll carry on. And if you could do me a favor, if you've enjoyed the show so far, please do consider hitting the like button down below. Oh, great, thank you. Google couldn't play my ad. Okay, well, Google's just not letting me play ads for reasons I'm not aware, but fine, whatever, Google. Jeez. I'll have to switch to Twitch or something like that. I was thinking about that, like it might have actually been a much better idea for me to do this live streaming on Twitch instead, but anyways. That's all in the past now. So, yeah, let's just carry on. So I'm just going to run this test. It should fail because I haven't implemented it. Yep, that is a big failure. Totally fine. It's a compilation failure, so what's the deal there? What is the deal? Why are you telling me build fail? I'm just gonna clean it. That's kind of weird. Okay, and we'll try that again. Well, it's telling me that there's a compilation error, but it's not really telling me what the error. Multiple build failures. That's rather confusing. Maybe it's in my logic class? Is problem with logic class? What is problem? Maybe it's because I had a bunch of processes running. Just try that again. Oh, that's fun. That's really weird. That's really annoying. So it's telling me that there's a compiler, a compilation error, but when I look at the compiler output, it just gives me a bunch of warnings. So that's a little frustrating, gotta be honest. What about this one? Is this one? Oh, maybe it's their run blocking. That's probably it. Yeah, that is very likely the issue. There's always an answer. Oh, okay, at least I'm getting an error. There we go. Finally, it's telling me what the actual problem is. Okay, so let's go to... I probably should have realized that, but that's okay. Yes. Add. Oh, yeah. Implement members. To do is fine. Okay. Let's try that again. All right, so we have a failing test, which is actually a good sign. That's basically how test-driven development works. I'm just restarting my YouTube tab over here. Okay, there we go. Cool. So, what I'm gonna do, so the test is running, but it's failing. So now the next step in test-driven development is we go to the class and we write the implementation until it stops failing. So in on delete click, that is going to be a coroutine, run blocking. No, launch, my bad. Launch coroutine. And then in it we say, what do we say? We want to just tell the view to show a confirm delete snack bar. So that doesn't actually need to be a coroutine. I don't think that operation really needs to be a coroutine. So is that going to cause the thing to fail again though? Oh, that's annoying. We'll see. Okay, so I'm just going to say view dot show confirm delete snack bar. That's all I want to do there, right? Okay. Bad recording. Please finalize. Okay, so I think it's complaining about this line here, so returns unit. Is that going to make it shut up? Or why don't I just actually delete that? Okay, no, that worked. Whatever. Okay. I think I'm learning something about Mockk, but okay, let me just see if I can get rid of that error I had before by saying view dot, what is it, start list feature, and then let's try just returning unit. How does that work? Okay. Yeah, okay. So, pro tip with Mockk, apparently if you have a function which doesn't return anything, it still wants you to mock it. So, or if you have a mock which has a, whatever, you probably understand what I mean. Okay, so on delete click is implemented, then we have on delete confirmation. That one's going to be a little more complicated. So this will fire. So what happens when user confirms that they wish to delete a note, delete the note. So we can get rid of some of this stuff here. So when user confirms so user confirms that they want to delete the note. So this is triggered when that event fires. So then what we need to do is we need to delete note, obviously. And once that is finished, we want to probably show message note deleted, and then we also want to say start list activity or start list feature. Just kind of clean that up a little bit. Okay, now I can hopefully write these unit tests a little bit quicker. So note detail event, this one is going to be on delete confirmed. On delete confirmed, it's going to ask the view model for the current note. I could probably just send in the ID. Is that actually what I do? Where's delete note? I could probably just send the note ID. I don't see why I would need to send the whole thing. I think I'm going to do that. Let's just send the ID. Yeah, I like that better. Okay. All right, I'm just going to take a quick moment to collect my thoughts and try to run another quick commercial break. We'll see if YouTube actually lets me do that. Oh, it's actually playing the ad. Okay, so Benjamin is asking, why do I need to have returns unit in this particular function here? So let me run it with it. So when I run it with it, we see green light, everything's good, test pass. When I don't run it with it, I believe it's going to scream at me. We shall see. Either that or I'm just wrong. Yeah, see, it's failing now. So the error message it's failing is, please finalize every block with returns, answers, / just runs. So I believe this is just a idiosyncrasy of Mockk, is that even though this function does not return a value, technically every function returns unit by default in Kotlin. That's why I add in the returns unit. Unit is just like the generic return type of every function, so that appears to be why that is working. So this is like the first day I've actually worked with Mockk, so maybe there is actually a way that I don't have to just constantly throw that in there, but just based on the error message I was getting, it was telling me that I need to add some kind of return clause here, so that's why I did that. So we'll see, you know, mocking frameworks have their idiosyncrasies, their little quirks. So, anyways, back to what we were doing here. So, in onDelete confirmation, we don't ask confirmation again. I think I just copy pasted that to make it easier. So in that particular case, we're going to say vModel. Let's just get rid of that. vModel.get display state is going to return a note, possibly. And what we're going to do is we're going to return get note dot get note dot creation date. So creation date is the ID I use for the notes. So it's complaining that it's getting a string instead of a note. So instead of doing that, actually, we'll just say get note. Yeah, we'll do that. So it gets the current display state, gets the current note, and then it's going to call my interactor. So we'll do that next. Where do I mock that shit? Here we go. So we call that interactor source.delete note, and then we're going to be the ID is going to be get note dot creation date is what it'll be. Okay, and we'll just return true in this case. onDelete confirmation successful. Okay, so we get the current note so that we can delete it. Then we tell the backend to delete it. Then we show a confirmation. So let's say I shouldn't need to mock. Yeah, I'm gonna have to play around with Mockk because I feel like I'm not doing it 100% correctly here, because it does seem silly that I need to that I need to basically mock behaviors that don't need to be mocked. That is just kind of weird and inefficient. So I bet I'm probably just doing it wrong. Anyways, okay, so what do I want to know? So I want to make sure that it does actually ask the view model for the display state. So let's just make sure it's doing that. I want to make sure that it's saying to the view the node has been deleted. So view.show error. No, not show error. We'll add a new one. Show. Maybe that shouldn't be called show error. Maybe it should just be called show message. I'm going to use show error, and then I'm actually going to rename it. Actually, I'm not sure if I trust the ID to rename that. Well, let's go to view, iNote detail contract view show. Let's just say show message. And I think I have an extension function as well. What the hell is this stupid class called? Extensions? Oh, that's annoying. Let's go to project. Android ext. Okay, there we go. Whoops. Had that open on the other side. Yeah, so we're going to rename this to show message as well. Because a toast is a toast, whether it's an error or not. It is a toast. Okay, that should fix that little confusion up. Okay, let's go to back to the test class. Show message. So that's the next question, is what should that message look like and where should I store it? So I think I should put that message in the node detail contract class. Const val message delete successful equals so this is going to be problematic if I want to do localization, so I am absolutely aware of that. To be basically supplying strings to be hard coding these strings instead of getting them from localized resources is going to cause problems there. In this particular application, I don't actually care about accounting for localization, so I am just going to hard code these in here. So we're going to say note successfully deleted. Whoop, not what I wanted to do. Note successfully deleted. Okay, and then I want to see down here, message delete successful. And what else do we do? So we call that, and then we also say start list feature. Okay, so I think that's everything we need to do. Let's just try running that. How's everyone enjoying this test-driven development in action? Oh, it's get display state was not called. Absolutely, that's because I haven't actually implemented this thing, so let's go implement it now. A lot of the reason why I'm doing this is I just want to kind of show people that testing is annoying because the first time you try and get started with testing, you're going to be spending a whole bunch of time just configuring your test environment. But once your test environment is configured, test-driven development is really cool. I really do like it, but that is of course the main criticism for it, is like all the time that I spent this morning fiddling around trying to get mocks working. for extension functions, that was definitely time I could have spent just building out the application. So that's one of the trade-offs. That's why I think testing is just such a controversial topic, because you do want to test. It's how you verify that your application works properly, but it does come a point where there's a bit of a trade-off between, like I say, every time you create a new test setup, if you have to change the libraries you're using or change your approach, that can be kind of a big time investment. So it's a trade-off sometimes, absolutely. Okay, so what we need to do. So Taha asks, how is it possible to use localized messages? So in that particular case, what I would do is I would create like a resource manager class, because you're going to need to get the localized strings from the various locale-based resource Android resources. Like I'm not sure if you're familiar, Taha, but you can do like you could do like values. It's been a while since I actually did this, but you can do something like create a folder in res called values-en. Actually, let me just try and do that just for fun here. So I'll right click on the res folder, go to new resource file. Let's try that. And yeah, so as you can see here, there's a qualifier you can select. So we can go to locale, and let's say we want to localize. We will localize to Bosnia and Herzegovina because that is where my friend Davor currently he is living. So we create this one, and anyways, yeah, that's basically how you would do it. So you would load it from the Android localized resources. Maybe there's another way to do it. That's just the only way I'm aware. So obviously, if we're not loading this string from resources, then I have no way of localizing it. But that'd be how I would approach that. Okay. So where was I? So we need to add the new event. So this one's on delete confirmed. I like this little setup here. Like every time I need to add a new event, I just slap in another little thing here, and it just flows really. Oh, how can you access r.string from the test in the domain module? So in this particular case, this class doesn't sit in the domain layer. So you're asking, how would you access localized resources in your domain? Which, so I'm trying to understand here. So I might be slightly misinterpreting your question, Taha, but I wouldn't want to see any kind of resources, so r.anything in a domain layer whatsoever. So I don't think I would want to see that in domain tests. So I'm trying to understand what you want to do here. How can you access r.string from a test in domain module? I really don't. You wouldn't do that. Yeah, you're. The only way that you would do that is if you were getting the. If you had some external backend service which was responsible for getting the localized resources. So I could have the domain layer talk to like something. So if you build your application the way I do, your data layer is actually considered to be an Android module. So you could give it what it needs to find the localized strings, and then you would basically pass that through the domain layer. But I don't think you would ever want to care about localization in the context of testing a domain layer, because the domain layer, like when I want to test is that what I have open here? Where is it? When I want to like test the domain layer, I'm typically not concerned about at least in this case, I'm not really concerned about the specific data it returns. I don't know. The short answer is, if you really wanted to get resources from the data layer, then I don't know. I don't even really know what I'm saying, but I don't understand 100% the question. So if you could reiterate it a bit, I can try and answer. Okay, so on delete confirmed, we'll create that. No worries. Okay, on delete confirmed. And this would be a coroutine, so we'll say launch. And in this case, we're going to, I can almost just copy and paste that. Okay, so we get the current note, and again, I think I'll check to see just if it's null. It really shouldn't ever be null. Whoa, what did I do here? I'm doing something wrong. I pasted in the wrong function. Silly Ryan, that was not cool. Okay, so in this case, when we definitely want to delete this thing, so we say delete note. I don't need an updated note, so I can just say current note dot creation date, which is the ID, if in case anyone's wondering. That's what I'll be using for unique IDs. And so if that happens successfully, we let's make a block out of this. So we say view dot show message, and then we'll say, what did I call that thing? Message delete successful, and then we start the list feature. Otherwise, we show a message, we show an error message, and we don't do anything else. Okay, I think I'm happy with that so far. Let's see if the test runs. Alright, so I forgot to mock the dispatcher provider. Fair enough, my bad. Again, I would like it if I could just mock that for every test case, so I need to figure out how to do that. There must be a way to do that, because I don't like having to copy and paste all of these stupid behavior mocks. There's no way that's actually necessary. Okay, no answer found for show message. Again, this is the same problem as before, is that I don't feel like I should have to mock a response which doesn't return a value. But for now, we have to do that. Fine, whatever. off camera, I'll by the time we get to this next week, it'll be a lot better. I'm quite confident. So view dot, come on, Brain, you can do this. Almost done. Show message. What's the message? Message delete successful. Turn unit. And start list feature, return unit. Boom, green light. All right, everybody, so I will stick around for like 2 or 3 minutes in case anyone has any final questions, but that's going to be it for coding for today's show. So I'm hoping to be able to publish this repository by the end of the week, and it will, actually one thing I'll show you is I will be implementing as soon as I can local and remote data sources. So I know Taha in particular, you've been quite curious about that. I've also been curious about that because I haven't actually implemented this yet with coroutines and using this current approach. So once that's finally done, then I will share that with everybody. And I have some kind of special plans for this application, but we'll just kind of see how that goes. But yeah. So you'll have about 2 minutes for questions, and if there are no questions in 2 minutes, then we are going to call it a day. Ich bin ein bisschen müde. I'm a little tired. Good day though. Very productive day. Narcotic Niklas. Jag don't hard bass. I dance to hard bass music now. I am not a god. Don't be silly. Alright, looks like that is it for today. Alright. Oh, this particular, so Benjamin asks, what kind of app are you doing? So this is just going to be an online, offline, come on, Brain, you can do this. This is going to be an online, offline note-taking app, but I have a special plan for it because I think I'm going to have a version of it uploaded to Google Play, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and share the remote data source with every user, so users are going to be able to do stuff like they're going to be able to upvote notes, and also each note has an optional nullable user associated with it. So what I'm hoping is in the application it's going to function offline as a note-taking application, and then I want to be able to switch the notes that it displays to displaying just like public notes. And the reason why I want to do that is I was kind of thinking it could be kind of fun to like go through on some live streams sometime and look at space notes to find questions that people have or something like that. So anyways, that's basically it. Thank you so much for watching, and happy coding, everybody. Yeah, that's it. Peace out, my friends.